Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Here, we look closely at the intersections of the postpartum window, the Ayurvedic perspective on health and healing, and the universal mother principles that are the keys to giving and receiving effective care. Hello, I'm Christine Devlin Eck. I'll be taking you through interviews with professionals who are making a profound difference in the lives of their clients, conversations with individuals brave enough to share their stories of vulnerability as a way to lift up others, and my own journey through birth, parenting, caregiving, and building a conscious business. We are here to honor the sacred windows, the profound transitions in life that give it all meaning. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Today is a topic that I think is really being called for from different areas of my life. And I'm so happy to be having this conversation with our community member, Vanessa Lamorte. We're going to be talking about postpartum identity integration. Vanessa Lamorte Hartshorn is a wise woman. Let me tell you, I have met her in person. I've been connecting with her over the past few months online through our programs. She has an impact on those who she comes into physical space with and also online spaces. I'm serious, Vanessa. It's really such a pleasure to have you here. Vanessa's a mother. She is a sound healer. She is a flower essence practitioner and maker. She's a transpersonal psychologist and an Ayurvedic postpartum caregiver. She lives and works in Nevada. But Vanessa and I today are going to be diving into sort of her transpersonal psychology background and looking at postpartum identity integration, because this is such a part of how we perceive our healing journey and our journey into this new phase of life. And I have never met someone who didn't feel a deep impact or almost like a reckoning of some way of who am I now? And so for, whatever the spectrum, wherever we are, and if this feels uncomfortable or if this feels easeful or if this feels just overwhelming or just big, we're all navigating some sort of identity integration. So thank you, Vanessa, for being here to talk to us about this.
Thank you for having me and for that amazing intro. I feel honored. And this is a topic that I'm very passionate about, so I'm really excited to just dive in with you.
Yeah. I want to just begin with tell me about the basis of transpersonal psychology. What does this mean? What is it? Let's kind of start with that.
Yeah. So transpersonal. So we're going beyond the personal, right? The word trans, going beyond. Transpersonal psychology really is the study of the soul and existentialism and the spiritual faculties. Um, we can look at the word psychology in the modern way we've come to know that word is the study of behavior, the study of the mind. Transpersonal psychology takes all of those things into consideration, and it's very whole person centered. So we're saying, okay, this person has a body, so there might be the psychosomatic things that we're dropping into with how are we feeling inside of our body, all of our thoughts, so the mental faculties and how our thoughts affect our actions and our emotions. But then there's the spirit. And so when we say whole person centered, we're really looking at all of it, mind, body, spirit. And we are also really taking into consideration the individual, but then also who is the individual in relationship to the family, to their community, to the world, to the collective. And like keeping all of those pieces in mind and in heart when we're looking at things. So I've never worked as a clinician or as a therapist. Um, and I wouldn't actually even technically be considered a life coach because it's a little different. So I'm in this in between space. And I think that's transpersonal psychology. I feel like in a nutshell is we really thrive as transpersonal psychologists or practitioners thrive in the liminal. Um, and that's, I think, the kind of the key word that I would bring to this conversation around postpartum identity.
Yeah, it seems to me to be like a very whole person centered approach in the way that, medical sciences like Ayurveda are really looking at the whole person in terms of your body, your
True.
spirit, your senses, your mind, your emotions, all of that, and how all of those are functioning contribute to this picture of health. And it feels like the way that you were describing it, transpersonal psychology, is really an opportunity to look at all the layers of
Mhm.
our psyche, our subtle bodies, our spiritual health, and how that relates to our relationships and what we're doing in the world, how others are relating to us. It's pretty actually kind of mind-blowing that mental health doesn't take into consideration, um, I guess, this whole picture.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would say, I appreciate so many modalities and, philosophies and streams of thought. What I like about transpersonal psychology, and I think why I gravitated toward it after my undergrad is that um, it has some quality of feeling like an origin point in psychology, because I'm thinking of the word psyche, like our psyche. The word psyche actually originates from ancient Greek and actually means the soul. Um, and then there's the story with Psyche being the little butterfly of the soul, or the butter. Sometimes it's seen as the butterfly of once you pass on. So when I think about that part, Psyche, the soul, like origination point, or we look back to both ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and many, many ancient traditions, but I'm just speaking to these right now, is like the Asclepian temples, which were dreaming temples. And so a big focus of my work, and a niche in my work is dream work, and that came through the transpersonal psychology lens. And so dream work being a vehicle to look at our dreams and see what the unconscious is saying, because every dream really is designed to bring something to the conscious self. It's a Jeremy Taylor, who's a transpersonal psychologist and author, says it's a vehicle or way to wholeness. So it's just every little tidbit, every little thing. So, and back to the ancient piece, the dreaming temples, they would look at dreams, and then those some of the times they were called priestesses or priests in the temples or healers, initiates, but they would look at your dream and then give you a prescription. They would say, oh, based on your dream, this is how you should eat. These are the herbs you should take. These are the things that, you can do to, be in wholeness. And so that's just like a little example, of ancient made new, and like the way that I'm feeling this, and have been, just through my time with transpersonal psych. So yeah, I think, and I bring in dreams because I do feel like it really relates to postpartum. For me, it relates to postpartum identity integration, but we can get to that anyhow.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I love too the like Asclepius, when I think of that, like that's the physician. It's like the medical
Right.
piece of it, that being so tied to dreaming and using dreams, using the mind and what happens there as a roadmap for helping to heal in any number of ways is
Yes.
it's just affirming. It's beautiful. It's just like, okay, yeah, this is ancient, it's time tested, and here we are. How do we create these opportunities in the time
Mhm.
that we're living right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you bring in the word physician, because that is the connection point with that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so great. So let's talk about um, I think that, there are going to be a number of times during our lives where we're going through existential moments or like huge transitions. So while we relate things to the postpartum window as someone who is, moved out of my own postpartum windows and is, moving through all these other stages of my life. I can see how relevant all of this still continues to be. But let's kind of just focus it in, knowing that we can apply it to other windows. But when we're looking at um, this shift of like non-parent through this like portal, however that portal looks, maybe it's not pregnancy for us, maybe it's, an alternative path of becoming a parent. But when we look through that journey through the portal, like what's happening here, what is it? It's almost like that mushy middle part that we can talk about of like we're becoming something different, and we may
Right.
not always be aware that we're becoming something different until maybe we get through it and we look back and we're like, well, what was that?
Mhm.
We're
Exactly.
like, what is going on? What's going on in that part?
I'm reminded of one of my very good friends, dear sisters, said to me when I was pregnant with Ollie, my son, that when I was gonna give birth, she's like, you're not only gonna have the birth of the child, but there's gonna be the birth of the mother and the birth of the father, my husband. And I think that's true, whether it's child number one, two, three, four, so on. It's the new mother every single time there's the child that's born. And then even if it's adoption or a different, if you're becoming a foster mother or, there's the birth of that person, the parent who is going to support that child. Um, and that relationship, right? Because if we're talking about transpersonal psych and the relationship and like how we're keeping it all in mind, I feel like thinking about that process and feeling into it, it's like, well, every single time then I'm going to be shifting and relating to my identity in a new way. And so, you know, for us to think things are going to stay the same or want things to stay the same, like the change piece that happens, I think it can really lock things in. We want stability. Humans want control. I think that's fine, normal, and that's what creates safety. Um, but there is that mushy space of like, okay, but like I'm the caterpillar and I'm going to become a butterfly. What's going to happen in that in-between space? And if we look at that model, it becomes goo. Like it becomes goo inside the chrysalis. The caterpillar completely dissolves. And we don't see that anymore once the butterfly emerges. It's completely different. Um, and I like to remember that when it comes to me, right? Like, and you and all of us, like, we might not be caterpillars and butterflies exactly, but we are going to go through some goo. And I just letting the dissolve happen is so beautiful to me. And it's exciting. And it's like, well, who and what is the chrysalis? What is the support? So that we can kind of fall apart, so we can put the pieces back together. And it doesn't have to look, it can look however it needs to look for people. When I say fall apart, that might bring in like a, ooh, but um, I feel like any time in my life I've had a transition, there's always been a moment of, okay, I can feel there's unknown. I can feel the changes coming. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know. And then maybe I do know what's coming, but I'm still not there. Like the thing isn't there yet. And to not be product focused or destination focused and like really being like in that, I would even say erotic, the aliveness space of like enjoying the journey, enjoying the process. And it's like, okay, then what is it that I'm going to need to let myself do this whole thing? Which is like, I know I'm going to become the butterfly. And right now I'm the caterpillar. What is that? How can I support myself in that becoming, unbecoming, becoming phase? You know, um, does that make any sense? I hope I'm not speaking.
It makes so much sense. And I'm just like visualizing it. It's like there's this doctor that I read the story about, and she was a brain doctor. I don't know like her formal title or anything, but I read about this and it blew my mind. So she studied the brain. She studied in particular strokes and what goes on in the brain when someone is having a stroke. And then she had a stroke, and she was like observing herself through the entire process. And as she healed from it and she came back, she started like writing about it. She was like fascinated with her own body and her own brain and what was going on. And it was like rather than have this horrible thing be this, you know, downfall, she looked at this experience as like honestly with wonder, and it taught her so much more about what it was that she had dedicated her life to. And so I almost like this was story was coming up in my head because what if we are able to like hold ourselves with this awareness that like I don't know what's going to happen. So it's like we have this observer, almost this like quiet divine feminine observer that's just holding the space and just offering complete unconditional love and wonder to sort of let what is going to happen unfold as it needs to. And rather than sort of feeling like, and I say this because I remember feeling like I was stuck in this out of control spinning space that I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is that I didn't like it and I didn't know if I could handle it. But as I kind of came out of that and then subsequent postpartum windows where I had some more awareness, I was able to like look down on it, almost like hold the space for it, hold the space for that unknown and not feel like I was trapped in it. There's this
Mhm.
huge difference between honoring it and holding space for it and feeling like we're totally out of control.
Absolutely. And I feel like um the level of presence that we have, like with what you said, like you felt out of control and like this spinning, and then you had more awareness, right, in the next windows. And I think if we can remember that piece is like is the awareness, it's like having the awareness of where we are in that now moment and being really present to what it is and getting really engaged with it, like whatever it is, like just really engaging with it. Like this is what's in front of us right now, whatever the thing is, whatever the situation is, and I'm feeling like, you could look at this from the Hindu perspective or a Buddhist perspective, or like so many different traditions would say this, but it's like be here now. Like what is that? Because it's for you. And as you were speaking, I was wondering to myself, I'm like, have I thought this before? I think I have, but like really feeling this thought of um the way that we work through or move through these kinds of transitional spaces or liminal spaces, I think really shape who we become, and or how things can get uh locked into certain, patternings, or fragmented or whatever. And then how we move through that. And I think that every moment is a perfect moment, however things unfold. Um, and and also like if we can keep an awareness about being really accepting, like radical acceptance, compassion, and presence in times like this, I think opens up a whole new world of experience, where it doesn't have like it may be unknown, but it doesn't have to be fear filled, and then like holding those two opposites together. And so when you said like the feminine holding, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, for all of that movement to happen. That's exciting to me. It's like unknown, or like even my body, I'm like, oh, that's who I remember. You know, there's moments where it's like being like I remember I had just given birth to Ollie. This was like summer of 2021. And I was like, oh, this is so exciting. Oh my gosh, I'm a new mom, but can I do it? Like, am I capable? Like, I had all these new thoughts about this new experience because I've never done this before. And it was like being at the top of a roller coaster, and you're like, oh, it's gonna, but I love roller coasters. I'm like, it's gonna, and I could feel that movement coming for me. I resisted, like digging my heels into the ground, resisted. And I made it very hard for myself. I'm not going to lie. That movement, it wanted to move me. And when my husband told me one day, it was probably like 6 months postpartum, in that year, he was like, just surrender, like let it happen. And then he told me a whole story about like his work, which he's a firefighter paramedic. So it's interesting to hear him speak from a crisis standpoint. Not to say that this is a crisis, but just like how emergency medicine works, and like this is what's happening and I'm doing what's right in front of me, right? Like attending to things. And it was actually really helpful for me to kind of get out of my stuff. I wouldn't say like I was healed after one story, but or something like that, but I think it created an opening. So like I like to share that, because if we think not that birth is a crisis or an emergency, but that it's a moment to be very present, to attend to the things that are right in front of us, that that I think it becomes more the prioritization of everything kind of rearranges itself. And then the mind isn't like, oh, that's what, like, what's actually important is the central question, I think, is what I'm getting at. What is important? What is the value? And how do you create the structure that supports what those values are? Um, yeah, I mean, it's a huge topic. Like, I almost feel like I'm talking in crazy abstracts right now. I'm trying to like make it the word was the word tangible,
Yeah,
but
no, this is honestly like amazing because it all like what your husband's like his story is so powerful because it for me it took me right into like I don't have to know anything other than what I'm going to do in this very moment. Like
sure.
I don't have to think about anything else except this very moment.
Hmm.
And ultimately, this very present moment is all that matters.
Hmm.
So bringing it back to just what do I want to do right this second? It's certainly not stress about the next 5 minutes. It's certainly not stress about how I'm going to feel in the morning. It's
Yeah.
certainly not what am I going to do if all these unknown things happen? Like, it's none of those things. Like, what all of us naturally are is
Hmm.
this perfect piece of divine loving energy. Like,
Yes.
that's the essence of what we are. So, if all we do is in this one moment, like, release
Yeah.
any kind of pressure of what's going to happen next and just be in this moment, that is automatically going to guide us to the next right thing. So to me, it's just like a incredible relief in a way. Like it is that surrender. It is that
Hmm.
taking a breath after having held it because you're afraid of what's coming next.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, thank you for bringing me to that place. That was really cool.
Absolutely. And I like, even as you're sharing that, and like I'm being reminded of um l- being reminded of the minute to minute process that happens in especially the sacred window. And then when I say postpartum, I'm thinking even like the first few years, but but like the immediate postpartum window, I feel like it's such a huge permission slip to really live that way, live very present. Like I think a lot of people say, oh, I'm living in the moment, I'm living in the present. And then I think it can be like a spiritual, it's just like, oh, like it doesn't really have a lot of grounding until you're presented with the opportunity to really hone that. Because I would say that the sacred window offers us that moment to be in the minutia, like who am like my identity is not that it's wavering, or it's not that I don't know who I am, but how I'm feeling or what I have to be present to moment, minute to minute with a new child. It's changing all the time. And it's permission to be with that and what that is. This moment we're breastfeeding and this moment we're napping, we're giving a bottle or whatever the change is, it's constantly moving. But I'm also reminded with this is that I think a lot of hardship happens because in life, in the collective, like we're not used to slowing down at this rate. Like I can't really think of a lot of other places that we have that kind of permission to slow down and to really be with who we are in that moment and what's true for you and to make decisions from that space because we live not that way. We live in a very fast-paced, life, at least in the Western world. Um, and I think that's actually new for me that I'm like really, really dropping in with in this moment is like, uh-huh, like I'm a millennial woman who grew up high achieving, like academic, And so it's like I'm having my own integration in this moment. It's just like, yeah, if I was always fast paced and focusing on like my checklist and all those things, like that is not baby life. And there was all these things that went wrong, quote unquote, that were absolutely 100% right for us and the experience. Um, and they rattled me at first, and then like in retrospect it's like wow, it is so perfectly divine, like the map, you know so that's a beautiful reflection to have, and also reminders like how can we let ourselves surrender to it, like truly give ourselves the space to be in the minutia of the experience. And I would say if you're a person who is wanting to be a parent or pregnant, it could be really fun to like carve out space to practice this or test this. Like, I'm gonna have a day to myself or a window of time, a couple hours, and monitor myself minute to minute. Like, that's maybe it sounds like crazy, but at the same time, like, okay, what does it feel like to really slow down at that level? You know? 5 minutes to 5 minutes, just feeling that I'm hungry now, I'm going to eat. Not hungry anymore, I'm going to read. I don't want to read anymore. I'm like really being in that and feeling it in yourself. And then that changes, right? Because now you can feel how that movement is in the self. And it's, I think, usually easier because we're regulating as adults. But then how will you do that with another being, a little tiny being that's completely dependent on you and you're regulating for? And then how will you have to say what you need for yourself to be able to support that being? That was hard for me. It's like to find the language, like, oh wait, hold on. I actually don't need someone to bring me a cold drink right now. I need someone to put socks on my feet. Like, it's like just really focusing on what is the need. No, I don't need hydration. I have enough. I think that it almost sounds silly, but it's not, because that is something I struggled with, and that I hear a lot of moms were like, I don't know what I even need in this moment. So it's like practicing, slowing it down to be very attuned to what our needs are and having the language, right? Um, or having the safety to say, I don't know what I need. Someone can just like hold your hand.
Right. Or like even, I mean, I love this so much because I think most of us, and I'm curious of those who are listening in today, if you just take a minute and like, have you stopped or taken 5 minutes of quiet today to
Hmm.
just really tune into what your body is needing, what you're feeling,
Yeah,
like what thoughts are not helpful in your head, or just observing the qualities that are in your space? Because my guess is that most of us could easily go through an entire day, maybe many days, without ever doing that one time.
absolutely.
And it's a skill set. It's a skill set, but it's not hard. It's actually just something we're not used to doing. But taking those minutes to just be quiet and become friends, become close, become
Hmm.
attuned to ourselves and like quiz yourself, like, what do I need right now? I love building that skill set because I was one of those people
Mm,
postpartum. It's like, I don't know what I want. I want someone else to decide because this feels like work to me to
yes.
decide. And that was true. And also, if I was, given the space, and I was given the space and the encouragement and the care to ground down, I could go inside my body and sense what it was that I needed. But the natural high
Mhm.
state of Vata dosha, that sort of elevated air and space, that's just how what nature does for us in postpartum,
Yeah.
that can make it more challenging to settle into our body and be able to discern that in the
Hmm.
way that we want to. How are you sharing your gifts and passion for caregiving with others? In a world where education and awareness around the postpartum window is lacking or missing from our modern systems, we have a profound opportunity to shift that paradigm. You may be a few simple offerings away from making a truly impactful difference in the lives of mothers and families in your community. We are here to support your journey in the ways that work best for you. Schedule a conscious care strategy session to meet one on one with me, and let's identify the right next step for you to begin a path of conscious care for new families that fits your life and your needs. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session to schedule a time that works best for you. That's www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session.
Yes, and like even if you were to go back and listen to the speed and the way in which I was speaking just minutes ago, you can hear in my own voice and my speech and like my thought process like the elevated vata. Because like I was really feeling and speaking from that self, right? And so what I think is fun about this is like there's a really concrete example that just happened organically here to be able to feel what that spiral could start to look like. And you can see it in yourself and catch yourself too. It's like, oh wow, I'm speaking so fast and oh my gosh, all the words are coming out of my mouth like this. And it's like that's how the thoughts start to go, right? That's the rhythm. And it's like the breath interrupts that. So I can take a breath and be with what's coming up. I don't have to kind of ride that roller coaster. I don't have to ride at the pace of that train. And then you can start to rebuild, like build those blocks a little differently. So it's it's very insightful and it's a practice. And I'm called to say, be really gentle on yourself, like the whatever self is listening. Because we're always listening with all of ourselves, right? Like I have a 4-year-old now. I'm not immediately postpartum, but there's that self in there that still remembers and is listening and then activated and then was responding a few moments ago, you know? And inside of that, we get to practice skills that we might not have a lot of experience with, and that is okay. Because if you, when, like, I like to ask a question, like, when would you have had the awareness or opportunity to practice that? Like, you can't, like, don't be hard on yourself at all, in my opinion, but we can't be hard on ourselves if we don't even, when would we have built those skills? You know, when would we have built them? Um, Postpartum sometimes is the first training ground for a lot of things like that. And so it's just like radical compassion, radical acceptance. Breastfeeding was very hard for me, but I'd never done it before. I was like, I have these big voluptuous boobs. Why don't they work? Like I was so upset. And um, you know, I just had to be with what that was. And like we are learning, and it is not just me. I have to be with this child who is also learning. This is their first time on earth. What? Like they don't even know that they're separate from me right now. They think they're in the womb still. And I laugh and jest, but it's like the profundity and the magnanimity around all of what's happening is like, I can calm down. I can calm down. I can and I
Yes,
will.
you will. Yes. And it's like this, um, I love looking at pregnancy, or, the time leading up to when we are actually a parent holding this child in real life. Um, it's like that is the time where we get to use all of those skill sets for like the planning and the checklists and the setting it up and the practicing and all of that. Like this is the
Yes.
natural, forming of the cocoon, like building the home, building our space, making sure that we've thought all those things through
Hmm.
so that we can be in that unknown space.
Hmm.
And, this reference has come up a couple of times in my head since we started talking. So I feel like I have to talk about it or mention it. Is years ago, I read The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And like the one habit that he starts out with is begin with the end in mind. So, like looking at where do I want to be at the end of this? How do I want to feel? How do I
Yeah.
want others around me to feel about me? What are the qualities that I want to have and have built around to hold my family, my work, my everything? And so, with that image, is like the audit for me, it was interpreted as like the sort of blueprint roadmap of like, I may not know what any of these roads are. I may not know how to do any of this.
Yeah.
And all of this is really hard and confusing, but I know that I'm going there.
Mhm.
So if I approach each present moment, like I don't have to know 10 minutes, but if I know right now, how can I like fill it with the qualities that I know I want out there?
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. Big yes to that. I think because in that way you're affirming to yourself like you're going to get there. It's very empowering what you're saying, you know. You know you will. It's just how. And you build it moment to moment. It's incredible. The strength that comes, the strength that really begins the moment that you know that you're expecting. Like there's like so many moments. Um, even before we get to the postpartum moment window. But it's just like you're constantly building that pranic resource, like to do incredible things. Like the strength of a mother is just wow, miracle workers.
Yeah.
Like,
Seriously. Seriously.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's like blindfolded miracle workers.
yeah. I didn't know I had 8 arms until wow, give me a baby. Woo. I feel like I'm Wonder Woman, like it's incredible. Um, yeah, one of the things maybe is slightly off topic, but not is the dreams that happen. Like I want to like I feel like I have to touch back into dreams for a moment in this topic because I feel like so many people it starts in pregnancy and are like I'm dreaming these crazy things. Like a lot of people report like increased recall or increased lucidity during pregnancy, and then also in also in postpartum. And I feel like that's also really cool and beneficial and is a way, it's like a way to call us in, right? Call us into the present moment, like what's like wanting to happen, right? Um, I had short story, I had a repetitive dream figure through pregnancy and early postpartum. I'm like, why am I still seeing this person in my dreams just constantly? Not a person that I know in waking life. Um, and it was an incredible playground for me to like embrace my creativity, to integrate myself, like, having a lot of perspective now. So I'm saying that because just a little brief touch in with dreams, but dreams as a maybe way of creative process is like using those moments just to reflect, Like dreams can be conversational, it can be something, oh, at breakfast, I had this dream, you share it with your partner, you share it with your friends, your family. But I think it can really open the conversation to things that sometimes get a little buried potentially in the postpartum time or just in any of these highly liminal space times as we're transforming and metamorphosing. I'm like, what's the word? But it's a conversation starter with yourself first, and sometimes can be brought to others. And like look at it, like ask yourself, like, why would I be dreaming this dream? We in transpersonal psych always say the meaning of a dream's ultimately up to the dreamer. So, no, I'm not ever here to tell anyone what their dream means. I love to give perspectives and different feedback. Um, or like, if someone else is sharing, it's always a projection. It's always someone else's lens, right? Like whatever the lens might be. But it's a great way to, I think, take the reflections a little bit deeper. Because like the one thing that I was feeling about we're talking about postpartum, but like kind of looping back to the beginning is an example of what is calling us in is like the example of morning sickness. It's like kind of the first moment in the early parts of pregnancy that start to tell us something's different and I'm changing. So kind of using that as a tangible example of how we are like the human life cycle has architected this to start helping us to think about identity a little differently. And then I think like how the dreams kind of can be skating in there to help us with that too, to bring us into wholeness as that new identity is starting to emerge. Um, and I was on that call the other day with Dr. Nicole Kumi, that it was so amazing that Sacred Windows, put together. But I thought it was incredibly interesting that she said that perinatal mood disorders really begin, she said they call them perinatal because they begin in pregnancy. And that connected a lot of things when I was thinking about identity and dreams. And then once we get to postpartum. So I'm kind of just, stitching some ideas together here out loud. Um, because ultimately, for whoever is listening, whoever the person is listening, I want everyone to feel free, you know, free and free from suffering. So, there's that saying, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, like this thing. And so we're going to go through things that may be painful, but at different points in our lives in general. But like, how do we help ourselves not suffer? So like all of these things, all of these thoughts about identity, it's like really embracing the big cycle, big picture with it. And just like that's why I was bringing in dreams, because they help me, and I know they've helped a lot of people kind of be able to zoom out and see that bigger picture and feel it and then do something with it. Whatever the dream is, like how do you bring it into waking life? In pregnancy, I kept dreaming about peaches. I was like, I'm just gonna get some peaches and start eating them in waking life. That led me to new awarenesses. Like that might sound like whoa, but I would be eating a peach and then having an awareness, having a reflection. I'm like, dream work works. Like so it's simple inner reflective stuff we can do with ourselves. And then, in postpartum, there's other kinds of dreams that come. And, I think there can be disturbing dreams. And if that's the case, obviously work with a mental health professional, or if that's, a direction that, that's the kind of support, like get that support. I also think we can really work with what that is. So I just like wanted to give that voice to the dreams because it's central to my story. And I also feel like it's one of the things I hear a lot with women, but we don't actually really ever talk about in terms of postpartum identity integration. Um,
It's such a dream work is a tool that I think just often gets overlooked or dismissed.
yeah,
And so, or, likely most people have never really been encouraged to do that type of work.
yes.
So I would love to know from you, what are some like general tools? I'm thinking specifically of like as I'm falling asleep at night,
Mhm.
Is there a simple practice or affirmation or something that I can set as I'm falling asleep? And when I wake up in the morning, is there, um, a practice to do to help sort of
Mhm.
hold that dream?
Yeah.
What's in your practice for those, like kind of sandwiching the dreaming window?
Yeah. There's a practice that, so starting with bedtime, um, starting your wind down process, whatever that looks like. I always like to reduce screens as much as possible. If I can light a candle and have like natural light or just moonlight, wow, that's amazing. But like a simple practice, we call it recapitulation meditation, but it means to recap the day. So you kind of start, I got in bed, and then what was I doing before I got in bed, and so forth. And you kind of trace the day. It actually really helps you let go of all of those things that you did throughout the day, all of the people you saw and all the conversations you had, all the places that you went. It really prepares you for dreaming, prepares you to be awake or conscious or lucid in the dream, to really be with that sacred part of consciousness. And so that's like one simple thing. And like people will say, "Oh, I fell asleep right after I started thinking about how I got to dinner and I fell asleep." Well, normal. You know, it's a practice. We use the word practice for a reason. So there's that. And then, and I love that. And I love that especially for these phases of life that we're talking about. And so I'll have to phrase putting this in a framework. You might not have time as a new parent, or having a new baby, like to do all of these things. So you just modify it to yourself and your life and your schedule. When I was pre-baby, I like did all of the steps, and then now, I do most of them, and they're expanding because Ollie's getting older, but whatever. We have he's waking up in the night, whatever the thing is, as parents, we adjust. Um, so then you fall asleep, right? You're just like letting yourself basically, I feel like it's off gassing the day. You fall asleep. Once you get to the morning, you wake up and you've had some dreams perhaps. Um, Staying in the position that you were sleeping in, on your side, on your back, for just like an extra moment, 30 seconds to even a minute, really helps bring the dreams back. Don't jump out of bed just yet. Just like hold on. You can open your eyes. Oh, I'm awake. And like let all those dreams flood in. It actually makes the world of a difference as far as recall. So many people say, I don't remember my dreams, or I don't dream at all. We're always dreaming at night, but the recall piece can be worked with. So if you're a person who says, I don't dream, you are in there, but we can practice it. It's like a muscle, right? So we can bring in different things. Back to nighttime for a moment before I talk about like recording dreams. Intention is important. And I would say I've seen people go from not dreaming at all to lucid dreaming in about 3 weeks of nightly intention. I I am remembering my dreams, like those kinds of statements, affirmations. I am remembering my dreams. Not I will, it's like the active, like I am. Um, and that really opens things for people. So if you're determined and if you value it, you want to try it, like that's the place I would start. Is if you don't even do the recap meditation, just do that and see what happens. And then in the morning, it's like keep a journal, whether you like writing like physically or you want to put it in a notes app. I actually have a Google Doc because it's just, it's so extensive at this point. It's always on me, and I reference my dream journal all the time. So now it's a whole document. Some people do voice recording, like on voice memo. So it doesn't matter how you record. I think as long as you are saying to yourself, this matters to me, like I wouldn't get in my head about how I record and like making rules and this and that and blah, blah, blah. It's just as soon as we start saying it matters, your unconscious is so excited to talk to your conscious that it just starts bringing things forward. And that's amazing. Um, and it just expands and builds from there. But yeah, you said, a lot of people don't maybe think it's valuable or, in life, I think it's just a dream. And I think that's been a narrative. And we spend a third of our lives asleep. So I always like to think about that, back to like origin, ancient blueprints. It's like, huh, why would the ancients have thought that was important? Why did they build entire temples to it? Why did they have physicians and surgeons and practitioners based off of dreaming? Like, it's mind blowing and it's exciting. So, yeah, I could just talk and talk and talk all day about dreams. So that's like how I would say.
I know. I can also, there's also something so powerful about that first, the last like 5 minutes of the day before you drift into sleep, and that first, you know,
Yeah.
5 minutes before you get up in the morning, and like creating not just our intention for dreaming, but like what is the most important thing that I want right now? How do I want to feel? And
Yes.
that's become like an anchor of like this, like just coming back down. And it's usually something like just intense love or just peace or joy or whatever it is that I need. But it's
Mhm.
like letting those transformational moments right there. Because,
Yeah.
yeah, what happens when we sleep is like, it's okay. It feels like a mystery to me, but I'm cool with that. Like, it's a solid chunk of my life right there.
Yeah.
And what happens there is impactful to my waking moments.
Yeah.
I think all of that, it's like I realize that this topic for this episode of, identity integration is a lifelong journey.
Yes.
And it's an exploration, and it will be experienced completely uniquely for every single person. It
Mhm.
will have its own pace, it will have its own flavors, it will have its own resistances or
Yes.
its own surrendering process. And there's something very beautiful about not feeling like it has to abide by anybody's rules other than our own.
Absolutely.
So, like that whole permission to be unclear is
Mhm.
is it's very freeing. It's very freeing. And I think also the other thing that like comes up for me is that knowing and that trust that every single person has the resources that they need to do that work within them.
Mhm.
And when we invite others into our spaces to help us with things, to
Yeah.
be witness to us, to not feel like we're all alone, like whether it's just provide company for me or help me with X, Y, or Z because I'm tired and I can't do it and I need help.
Mhm.
That gives us the resource inside to be able to do that identity integration, that
Yes.
unfolding in a
Mhm.
way that's not like emergency, you know?
Well, yeah, it's not so depleting. We can do it in a resourced way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I love what you said. It's a perfect summary, and um identities integration is a lifelong, I think, journey. Never being in a rush, like to land like that's the thing, right? Like I think that mentality has gotten me into a lot of sticky situations. And it's not to say that things don't land, they do. I think it's the rushing part. It's the like why is the pace that I'm going not the perfect pace right now, whatever that looks like. Um yeah, which I think just really goes back to that radical compassion and acceptance for what is. Um it's juicy and I'm very excited for everybody who's listening later and all of it.
Before we close, Vanessa, I just
Yeah.
feel like really drawn to hear about, your background, you've been studying this type of psychology for a long time. You've like built your work around like different healing modalities. Like you understand soul work on multiple levels, and yet like you were really called to go into this postpartum window, and I'm feeling like, and I would like to have you speak on it, but I'm certain that your own postpartum journey was like guiding you to this phase
Mhm.
of your work. How has, you've been studying for several months, and like how has this started to reshape your own integration?
Ooh,
And yeah, just talk a little bit about that.
it is big. So big. Oh, I'm like, do we have another hour? I'm kidding. Do we have another 5 days? Um, yeah, yeah. I'm like, where to start? Well, I would say the first piece is the Ayurvedic wisdom and knowledge matches really well with transpersonal psychology, like whole person centered. It's very tailored and like the doshas. I've always had an interest in it. So like learning about the doshas, I think really like it's like, oh yeah, the personality and like the body and the food and just like the dialing things in of the unique ways. I think for me and my story, like my postpartum, I would say it was challenging. um, I call it postpartum dissension is what I had. Like I just really brought me into myself, but like there was a lot of hardship and challenge around that. But um, I think because I was listening to a lot of wisdom from other people or advice rather that didn't honor that kind of uniqueness. It's like that's just the way it is. Motherhood's just hard. Motherhood's just it's just gonna be like that. And it's like, is it really just gonna be like that? And it wasn't helpful for me. So my journey, the hardship is what brought me here because it's like I kind of my own identity integration summed up in a nutshell was like I have this um I live in the liminal space. I'm a grounded practical person like but that's where I like to be. I like to be in that philosophical, dreamy state and then bringing those things manifest. And that was great. Like my 20s, I was very working from home, solopreneur person, and that fit. And then, motherhood was identity shock. So, and then I gave birth in like the pandemic time. So, like, there's a whole story there and a unique, I would say, experience with that but not unique in the way that like a lot of people have had that experience even outside of pandemic, like isolation and these pieces. I didn't know what I needed, and it was like I was listening to advice that was like it's just going to be this way or that way. So this like all the kind of blah blah around it, the stuff. Um, and then kind of going back, it was like hard for me even in moments when I was kind of so far into it to remember my tools. So that was like one thing that I was like, we as strong as I was as an individual, I didn't go into my postpartum time like really thinking and feeling into my village and community. I was like, I feel like a strong person. So that's the kind of like I would say a takeaway, a gemstone. It's like being in the program um has reminded me of the village more so than even, um like I know it takes a village, like the mentalization of that, but like whoa. And then seeing the practical um, ways in which we can actually make that happen. So, like tailoring the food to the dosha of the person, following Ayurvedic principles that are time tested and ancient. Um, like maybe we shouldn't have AC blowing on us all the time, which I did. I gave birth in the summer and I was so hot, but like I just like it shot my vata up. I can see so many things now. That I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have done that, and I wouldn't have done that. And I'm not like down on myself about it. I'm excited because it's like, oh wow, I can see, I can integrate that. I can bring that in and do things differently. Like even if I'm not pregnant, I can change these things. And just bring them into life and then share. So yeah, I think that now, as far as my work goes, I'm talking to a lot of moms, like, just having conversations about this work and how powerful it is. I send them the podcast, I send them this work, like go be a part of it. It's very powerful. And I think that what it's given, I think, well, a lot of tools, but a language for all of these different things that kind of quote unquote go wrong. And it's like it's a whole world on how we can create. I don't love that right wrong language, but like, oh, this was not what I wanted, or this is what I want wasn't what I wanted. But like there's a whole language and a whole body of wisdom now to draw from. And that's empowering because the kind of dissension I had, I wouldn't want another mom to have. So that's a projection, but also a protection, like of the community, because I really do feel like mother care, when we take care of the mother, the whole family as well. Like you can see the health of a family based on how the mother is taking care of herself and how that ripples out. And it's never to say that the partner or the dad is not important, because they are. But that's also to not negate that the mother has a very specific role in the family. And so, yeah, like, does that answer your question? Because I'm like, oh, there's just so much. But I would say that's kind of my full roundabout summary way to share that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just so beautiful to hear you say that, and I feel so much resonance in my own story too. And I think it reminds me that you know, it's those difficult or transformational windows are a catalyst for opportunity. Um, and
Mm.
when I honor it like that, then all of the hard things or the quote unquote like things I did wrong, like
Yeah.
none of it matters because it's in the figuring it out
Yes.
that the integration begins to happen.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I know there's so much with that. And I'm like, I just could keep talking. Like, um,
Well,
yeah.
so I mean, folks who are listening, Vanessa, she's a very vibrant part of this community, and she's got Vanessa, I was on your website today before we had our conversation, and I was just like
Oh,
gazing in awe at like the beauty that you are on
thank
this
you.
website and all the different incredible wisdom that you have. So perhaps we need to do like a series or something and have more of these conversations because
Yeah.
it obviously goes deep, and we're just really lucky to have you and to be able to go these places. So folks listening, please look on the show notes because Vanessa, why don't you tell them what you've got available coming up, but also what's available right now
Thank
for
you.
engage with you.
Yeah. Well, we can always have a one-on-one session if you want to connect personally. Right now I'm currently running it's called the Folk Flower Fairy training, and is actually a training for people to support their families with flower essences. So that's running right now, but it will be made available as a downloadable soon. And then in the fall, there will be I call it the Flower Fairy Godmother practitioner level training, because that's how I feel as a flower essence practitioner, is like this fairy godmother who's just delivering flowers. And I was like, is it frivolous to call it this? And I was like, no, this is the perfect thing. So learning like what are flower essences, how to work with them, how to make them, um, how to select remedies, how to support clients and others with them, because in short, they are subtle vibrational medicine that is the flower DNA imprinted, and they help us to address our emotions and our mind and our spiritual bodies. So really on the topic of all the things we've been talking about. Um, I offer voice lessons actually. So singing and music and sound healing is a big part of my life. Um, and that can be really incredible for just the creative part and like the expression and moving things through. And of course, there's the Dream Keys Flower Shop. So if you want remedies, there's a whole, I think it's 40 remedies I have now. I just keep adding to them, but single remedies, and then there are blends too. And eventually there will be soon, probably in the next month or two, I'm creating a very special line for postpartum. and potentially pregnancy. So really like tailoring it in with the all of the wisdom that's been coming through. And I mean, eventually, I would love to create an Ayurvedic line, but I have to recalibrate my flower brain to Ayurveda, and that's still coming in. That's still coming online. So, that's those are the things.
It's amazing, and I will speak for them. I have a couple of Vanessa's flower essences, and they've been beautiful to be using the past couple of months.
Mm.
Um, but Vanessa, thank you so much for this conversation on identity integration during postpartum and all of the times.
Yes.
Um, it's just such a beautiful conversation to be having. I encourage all of you listening to start having these conversations with your friends.
Mhm.
Uh, really embrace the ways that we're all kind of muddling through. Sometimes it feels like muddling, and other times it feels like, wow, look at where I've come.
Yes.
All of
And that's
it.
perfect. I love it. Thank you, Christine. This has been amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Center for Sacred Window Studies has been training postpartum care providers, professionals who work with new families, and individuals passionate about postpartum care since 2018. We regularly host live free events alongside our online and in-person training and certification programs. Hop on our newsletter list to get direct access to all of our events and community support gatherings. Our mission is not only in training conscious postpartum care providers, but in fostering a robust, informed, and thriving community of postpartum professionals. Once you step inside, you're family forever. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com to add your email to our newsletter list. You can support our work by subscribing to the Sacred Window podcast and sharing with someone you know who would love it. Thanks for being here and participating in the culture-wide shift that recognizes the need for and the importance of conscious postpartum care.